Okay, so I have been asked how I go about editing the color of my pieces when I'm done. This piece is just the image of my piece when it's done. It's all been flattened, it's all on one layer. And I do like the bright colors that it was done in. Except sometimes when I get to the end of working with bright colors, I sometimes want to try other things because my curiosity gets the best of me and I'm kind of a what if girl. And so you can see here that each one of these things, here's my background, here's my houses, here's my flowers, and here's my hill. And everything I saved from my previous file where I made this as PNGs on separate layers. And you can separate anything you want. I could have put my greenery on a separate layer. I could have done any way I wanted. You can do that so that you have control when you're done. And so I can put my background in here, and maybe I want to change my background. I'm not worried about the mess in the middle because that's covered by my design, so I'm not worried about that. I should finish it all the way through because then it would be usable for other pieces, but sometimes I'm having fun and don't think about it. So for here, I put a red layer over it. Now, a red layer in normal would of course just look solid red, but if you back off your opacity, and you scroll down here to either color or hue. What color or hue will do is take on the color of the layer that you have above your piece and influence the layer below according to however you set your things. So color and hue is a little bit less saturated, but it does the same thing. You can of course scroll through all of the other blend modes. You can check your opacity by putting it up and down. Sometimes you get ideas. Sometimes you just come across something that's like, wow, that really works. So we're going to go with color here. And that would be how you would change an individual layer. Now, before I go any further, if I go back here and I turn on all my individual layers, and now I take this layer, which is on top of my whole piece, and I turn it on, you can instantly see that I have this set on hue at 30%. And it has neutralized my picture in the sense that all of the colors are not so vibrant anymore, and they have a much more neutral tone, but they also are all picking up the blue. This is covering all of the things below it, as if this were one piece. You can turn this off and you can pick a different color. Let's say I wanted to go with a more purple. So neutral, this would be very strong at full opacity. I'm going to lower it and I'm going to go down here to color, and you can see that color is much more vibrant. As I back off, most of the colors from my original piece peek through. And hue picks up the pinks as well, but as you can see, I can turn this up higher and I have a much more neutral color palette here. It has infused the pinks into all of the colors below it. Some of them are more grayish tones, some of them are brighter, but that's also the color that I picked on that level. This level here is influencing everything. Okay, so if I want to that, I can turn the blue on beneath it. I can have a mixture of two tones. You can see by doing this and turning the blue up and maybe the purple down, I'm getting a much more grayed out picture. Here I'm picking up the turquoise. Maybe I want a little less of that. Maybe I just want to scroll through all of my options. This is a cute color palette, this pinky turquoisey thing. It distorted the picture a little, but it does give me an idea of a colorway that I might like to use in another piece because I like the way that looks. So all of these things are over the whole piece. Okay, so let's go back to, I like this. I like the duller burgundy, raspberry kind of colors in it. So that would be what you would do if you want to influence the whole piece with one color, or you want to stack one or two on top of each other. Okay, so if I turn my background off, now I'm going to work with one piece at a time. I have my houses on, and I can turn my blue into hue, and you can see I can go from blues to purples to a little bit of raspberry tone in there, back to the oranges. I can influence my houses. I can add a yellow layer on top of it and blue, a little bit of tone to it, but for the most part, it's browns. And so I can either do this individually on each piece, or I can keep my background on and work on this as a whole and watch each piece change as it comes to the surface. Here I've chosen red. I want to bring it down a little so that it goes with my houses. Right now, I don't like the background. I'm going to click on that, hit select, and I kind of like that. I'm going to adjust the color a little. I do kind of like the pinky yellow in the background. So this allows me to change, and right now I want to do clipping masks. You'll notice that each one of these layers have a clipping mask because these color layers will influence anything below it if it's not clipped to a particular object. So if I unclip this, you can see that that went from the pinks to the browns, and it's not much of a change, but it is a change. So clipping masks, it's important to pay attention to how you want each individual piece to look. Here's my flowers, and those are way too bright for this image, but I took a brown, as you see here, in my color mode, and I can turn that on, and I can turn this up, and I can go all brown. I can go browns with my oranges and a little bit of the plums peeking out. I can come up here to you, where you can see the change is more gray, and it's changing everything below it because at this point in time I do not have it clipped to my flowers. But if I come over here and I clip it to my flowers, if I turn it on and off, it is now only affecting the flowers. Color gives me a different tone than you, which is more vibrant. If I want my house to be a little warmer, I can come down here because blue is the cold color, and I can turn it down a little bit, and I can have this beautiful display that has changed my whole image. So clipping different color masks and playing with your blend modes to the elements in your design is one way to change it. Now then, I still have the option of coming over here, and these two layers here are on top of everything below it. You can see that there is no clipping mask. And so even though I edited my picture below and I liked it, I would save that version, but now I would come in here and I would put another color on top of it. Sometimes I scroll through all the blend modes anyway, just to see what it does, changing the opacity a little bit here and there. Today I'm liking the neutralness of this, where the flowers are a little bit brighter and the houses are a little bit more subtle, and I kind of like that because the flowers are framing the house and the brightness draws you into what's in the center of it. And even though the houses are not the brightest object, the flowers are kind of pushing you in there to check it out. So anything that is completely on top of your original layer will influence everything below it. Here I can get a lot of turquoise, I can back it off for less turquoise, I can go to the U part where I get, again, neutral turquoise. The flowers are more stronger in saturation than the houses, which kind of frame the houses and again draw you in. I can turn both of them on if I want and see this is kind of a gray blue, and I think that's kind of interesting. If I turn it all the way up, I still have some browns in there and more pinks. And this is interesting, and I still have each of these things on a separate layer down below, still being influenced by the layers above them, but I can turn them off, any individual item that I want, and see what it does to those pieces. Now if I turn off the houses, they didn't change very much. They just went from a little more neutral to a little bit more vibrant, because the two layers up here are really having more power in this color scheme than the layers below. If I turn off the background pink, I get a brighter background, which is not what I want, so I keep it on, and I like the grayish tone down here going up into a purple sky. And so you could sit in here and play with different layers of color and just play around until you get something you want. It's a lot of fun to use layers in your work. I think there's a lot of interesting ways to interpret your piece, and sometimes changing your own piece allows you to have different ideas when you do other pieces of the ways that you were to incorporate color. So play around, ask yourself what if, do things that look fun, change things up to how you like them, and explore, because the more that you explore and the more that you do, the more ideas you will have in your head for all your future pieces. It's kind of like building up a mental library. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I am always happy to help.